That's what your community grabs onto. That's the core of brand building. To be able to do both brand building and then sort of take that to the next level of storytelling, whether it's storytelling to new audiences and bridging that through influencer marketing, or storytelling to traditional media, or storytelling within traditional advertising or digital advertising. It's all sort of this core base foundation that you need.
Hi, I'm Jason Harris, and you're listening to Soul and Science. Fast forward your marketing mind in about 20 minutes. Welcome to the podcast. Katie Welch is the CMO of Rare Beauty, a makeup brand founded by Selena Gomez in 2020. Katie is a creative thinker and brand storyteller with more than 20 years of marketing experience. Katie's worked in the beauty industry since the beginning of her career, with a few detours working with media agencies. An innovative thought leader, Katie has continually pushed the envelope while working with globally respected beauty brands, including Hourglass, Bliss, Elemis, Burt's Bees, and Unilever. You can follow Katie on TikTok, where she has over 80,000 followers and shares career advice and marketing mentorship advice. She is at Katie Welch, KATIEWELCH on TikTok. All right, today's episode theme is leading with purpose in your marketing, and we're going to dive right in. So thanks again for coming, Katie. We always like to start with an origin story. So did you always know you wanted to go into marketing? Did you always know you wanted to be in the beauty side of the industry? Tell us a little bit about how you got started in your career and that led you to where you are today.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know beauty was even a career path, which is part of what inspired me to get on TikTok. But I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I went to college in Ohio. While I was in school, I met someone who was an executive at Estee Lauder. She was a friend's stepmother, and I said, "That's a job. You can do that." Like, I didn't even realize that was a career path. I was an English major. My parents didn't do anything related to sort of beauty or fashion, but that piqued my interest. And sort of from that day forward, I knew that this was a path that I wanted to go on. And once I graduated college, I went straight to New York. My first job actually was in the buyer training program at Macy's. And I was in this buyer training program. First, I was placed in the Christmas trim department, and then in luggage and frames, neither of which are close to beauty whatsoever. But I saw those beauty buyers and I thought, oh man, that's exactly what I want to do. That's the path that I want to go on. So I just continued to try and explore.
You didn't want to stay in the luggage area?
I learned a lot, Toomey, etc. I learned a lot. Actually, Macy's was a great foundation for my career. Because I was an English major, I didn't know anything about sort of retail math, markups, any of the language. It was a great foundation from which to go. But nah, that wasn't for me. It wasn't for me, but I was able to get into the communications group at Victoria's Secret Beauty from that position. Early days. This is 2000. So that's Victoria's Secret Beauty was my first sort of entree into the beauty industry, and very low level, clearing messages off of a voicemail called 1-800-HER-BATH, where the stores from around the country would call in and say that they needed more Love Spell or some sort of Victoria's Secret beauty product. And, was that the future of my, did I see my marketing career starting there? No, but what I did see was the industry happening around me. I was able to observe all of the different departments, how they interacted, the individuals, a lot of the sort of nuanced industry language. And that was just where I started, and then worked my way up through communications primarily, and a lot of communications agencies, before I then landed at Bliss, which was my first in-house marketing job.
What did you sign up for there at Bliss? What did you have to do?
I was the VP of Integrated Marketing Communications. And what was interesting about Bliss, when I was on the agency side, I was at an agency where we worked on the Burt's Bees account. And with that work, I worked closely with their chief marketing officer. At that time, this was 2000 and maybe 6 or 7, and Burt's Bees was trying to make a stake in the ground around natural. They were the first brand to really do that, to say they were placing a percentage on their label that said we're 99% natural, or with each of their products, which at the time was totally unique. It was before clean beauty, it was before any sort of that. It was the first of its kind. But at the same time, brands like Aveeno and other brands were throwing the words natural on their products when they weren't at all, because there's no sort of regulation of language in that regard. So Bree said, hey, we want to do something about this. We want to sort of come out as a thought leader in this area. So I worked on that, and I worked on their campaign for the natural standard, which was their sort of brand defining campaign that sort of catapulted them into this natural landscape. The CMO eventually left Burt's Bees and became the president of Bliss. When he became the president of Bliss, Mike Endersky, he called me and said, hey, can you come over and do this marketing job? And I thought, oh my God, how cool to keep working with Mike. How great to work at this brand, which I've loved for so many years. And so when I was at Bliss, it was at the very beginning of social media. 2010 to 2013. So we had a Twitter account. We were doing Instagram had just started, so we'd opened our Instagram account, and it was sort of scrappy storytelling. We didn't have big budgets, but we were able to storytell around the spas and the products and sort of what it means to bring the spas home to your skin. And they have a really fun voice. They have a very fun, punny voice. So bringing that to life in social, it was the perfect platform for that brand at the time.
So we obviously are a collection of our experiences, and you've worked at a lot of different brands and on the agency side. Was there one in particular that really shaped who you are?
Honestly, that moment at Burt's Bees at the agency, that was a big tipping point for me, because I think not only did I was able to take everything that I had learned from the agency side of sort of really thinking how a brand narrative can can move a business forward. And I remember at that time, I was waking up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to write these decks, which just sounds nerdy as can be. But I love sleep. So the fact that it was like getting me up, like that's when I first sort of noticed that I was in my flow state, where you like really know that this is something special. Like you love doing this. So that was one part. But then really, to answer your question, was probably my years at Hourglass Cosmetics, which I worked very closely with the founder, Carissa James, who was brilliant. And it was sort of, how could I help bring her ideas to life in a way that continued to leverage sort of what social and influencer marketing was doing within the beauty space. And that was around 2015 to 2018. So not only was it doing some really powerful product launches and sort of defining the brand and launching a platform around cruelty-free luxury beauty, and then going through the brand was eventually acquired by Unilever. So that all of that, whether it was launching powerful product franchises to launching pretty defining brand campaigns that set the brand on a path, to then working so closely with Unilever.
Awesome. You have a background in PR and marketing.
Yes.
Those lines get blurred a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see the big difference between those disciplines being, and how those came together in your career?
I'll start with the second question. I saw those two come together. I think it's more relevant now than ever before. I think marketing has changed so much in the last, and that's obvious, so much in the last 20 years, 5 years, 1 year, for goodness sakes. The foundation of communications and storytelling and understanding a brand's narrative. So what we used to have to be able to do to secure, let's say, a story about a brand, not just a product placement, but a feature story, a thought leadership story, whether it's executive positioning, brand narratives, what you'd have to do for those, it's core, it's brand storytelling. And so that today, yes, of course, you can continue to sort of tell those stories in media, but really what you need for that right now, that's what your community grabs onto. That's the core of brand building. And I think to be able to do both brand building and then sort of take that to the next level of storytelling, whether it's storytelling to new audiences and bridging that through influencer marketing, or storytelling to traditional media, or storytelling within traditional advertising or digital advertising, it's all sort of this core base foundation that you need. And my comms background, stuff that I learned at Weber Shandwick, working closely with Gail Hyman, with Susan Howe, with, whether it was something where we were doing client work or going in for a new business pitch, it was like I got a crash course in brand narratives. And I think you're able to take that and bring that to life now across all of the marketing channels, versus perhaps I don't know, old school marketing where it was like, okay, here's your customer. It's sort of this like two-dimensional. She's one individual. It's not as dynamic. You're in communications, you're forced to be a little bit, I don't know, more fluid. And I think that's what works in today's marketing landscape. So I think it set me up for the storytelling in the startups and the brands that I've been able to work for. So where that's really social led, digital led, influence creator led, that's helped a lot.
What do you see as the advantage when you went from agency side to brand side?
Well, I will say the brands that I have been fortunate to work on are not giant corporate brands. So I think when I was on the agency side, what I loved about it is the people first and foremost, but second, the big thinking, creativity, just ideas all day long. I can spit out ideas all day long. But at the agency side, which is great, you have that opportunity to come out with ideas for all sorts of clients, all sorts of businesses. We don't always get to see them through because sometimes the client may say, may stop it or as a pitch or what have you. But on the brand side, fortunately, because I've been at these smaller brands, I've been able to have that same ability to come up with ideas all day long and most of the time execute them. And so when you're able to see your ideas come to life, or the team's ideas, it doesn't have to always come from me, but I can help amplify them. When you see those ideas come to life and then actually make an impact on a business and move a business forward or define something or make some sort of impact, that feeling I loved. And that's what I fell in love with. But I will say, like, I've never worked at a big giant corporation. I don't know if I would have that freedom or that flexibility. Perhaps there's a little bit more red tape. I don't know. You got to ask someone from like Pepsi about that.
At the agency side, one thing I've always loved about it is the diversity. You can go from retail to food to finances, using your mind in a very elastic way. Do you find that when you work on one brand over time, that gets less fulfilling, or do you find that you're diving deeper in and it's more fulfilling?
Well, okay. Man, that's a good question. And it's so true. I love the elasticity, you're right, of your mind and the way you were able to go from business to, I mean, at Weber, I was working on Chobani to Amazon to Unilever. And so you really did have to shift your brain to think about the different business objectives. And not only, I think, does that keep you engaged and is it interesting, but it keeps I think it keeps your mind sharp. What I don't like to do now in the current position, because I've worked in beauty specifically for so long, is look for inspiration from other beauty brands, because I think then it's very easy to sell a lipstick the same way over and over again. Now, sure, of course, there's things that you sort of have to do to make sure that the proverbial lipstick sells, shade swatches and tutorials and that sort of thing. But if I'm always looking to other beauty brands or what's happening in the beauty industry for inspiration, it's going to have a bit of a me too or same feel. So I do like to sort of try to stay on top of trends or what's happening outside of my industry to see, okay, what's going on there, and is there a way that can inspire something for beauty.
You talk a lot about brand purpose. Can you tell me about ways you kind of break that down or think about it? Because I know brand purpose can mean a lot of different things to, different audiences. How do you see brand purpose, and how do you weave that into your strategy of what you do on the various brands?
I'll talk about Rare Beauty specifically, and it's a unique advantage with this brand because I worked on it with Selena from the very beginning. So I joined in 2019, and really with her and the rest of the Rare Beauty team, it was our chief product development officer, our chief digital officer, CEO, chief sales officer. We collectively came up with, okay, Selena, why do you want to do this? And what's this brand story that you want to tell? And she herself, as an individual, as a human, she's so purposeful and so purpose led. And she wanted this brand to make a difference, and she wanted to do something within mental health. And so we were able to build this brand from scratch that echoed her sentiment and what she wanted to do. So then to answer your question, that is everything from how the social content we share, how we engage with our community, down to within our office, all of our employee engagement, employee communications. All of our employees are trained as mental health first aiders. We have mental health Fridays. We have a Rare Beauty Mental Health Council, which is comprised of experts within academia, nonprofits, the mental health field, certainly, the medical field, who help advise us on our strategy because we are a beauty brand. We can't just espouse, we can't just give out mental health advice. So we lean on these experts to help guide whether it's our co-creation of content, our content strategy, but also our employee engagement. We are a mission-led beauty brand to help destigmatize mental health. Sometimes the content that we do around mental health can be saved just as much as a beauty tutorial, which says to me, oh my gosh, we're doing the right thing. It's educating people. We're the conduit to these trusted resources. So it's community, it's content, it's employee engagement. And then finally, we created a fund, called the Rare Impact Fund, where a percentage of sales goes towards mental health grantees. And we've raised over $3 million so far.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. So I always wonder because the brand's fairly new.
Yeah.
Did it sort of start with, you guys care about mental health? What's the product we can make? Or is it, we're going to do a beauty brand and what's the purpose behind the beauty brand? Which one comes first?
It's all tied together. It all starts with Selena. She was the one who said, I want to make a difference and I think I want to start with beauty. And let me tell you why. And she posted a post back in 2017 about the beauty myth of physical perfection. And she said, and at the time, a fashion designer or the media had criticized the way she looked. And as she was scrolling through social, it just made her feel worse and worse and worse. And she said, how is this happening? And if this is happening to me, and here's this person who has access to makeup artists or stylists or everything. And she's like, it didn't make her feel great. And she said, how can I make a difference sort of from the inside out? And how can I get in and help sort of break down these physical standards of perfection? And can I join the industry itself, the industry who is maybe putting out these images of perfection, and start to break it down? And so she had this idea of a beauty brand that does just that through the images that it puts out, through the words that it uses, through the products that it creates, so that they are fun and easy to use and not intimidating. But then also, could a percentage of proceeds go to something within mental health? And she's been so open and honest about her mental health journey that it was a natural tie, but also it sort of gets back to this celebrating your uniqueness. It's okay not to be okay. And just creating this community around breaking down and sort of empowering you to break down these physical standards of perfection. And that's where it sort of started. Now, did she know right then and okay, I want to create a fund, I want to do this? No. And that's what we all worked together to figure out.
How did she handpick you to start this thing? What was that like when you got the call?
So she found our CEO, and our CEO found me. So I was at a conference and he came up to me and said, Katie Welch, I sent you a note on LinkedIn and you never replied. And I was like,
I'm on TikTok. I don't check LinkedIn.
This is pre-TikTok. I was embarrassed. And now, so this is a lesson learned. Check your LinkedIn. But I didn't know who he was. And I said, I'm so sorry. Who are you? And he said, well, so he had just, the beauty industry is small and I'm grateful to have a reputation. I don't want to sound, and the beauty industry is small. I'll say that. And I'm sure they interviewed a ton of people or whomever, but from there, he said, I hadn't signed an NDA or anything. And he just sort of said, I want to talk with you when we're back in LA and I'll tell you about this project that I'm working on with someone, and the rest is history.
I always wonder when these celebrity driven brands start, if, the celebrity has an idea, but the team's not for it, how that balance works. Yeah.
Honestly, we all work so well together. And I think part of it is because it started so much in her vision. I mean, the first thing I remember, the thing that she said to me that struck out the most when I first chatted with her, and I said, Selena, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to create a beauty brand? Like, I knew about the beauty myth and we had talked about that, but I was really like, why? And she said, I want to create a space in beauty where people feel welcome. And it was the use of that word welcome that struck me, because I think in beauty, for so often we talk about empowerment or self-expression, and man, none of these brands, even brands that could be community led, you look at the content or the words or whatever they're putting out, or even sometimes the product, and it doesn't feel welcoming. Welcome, that idea of like, yes, come sit with us, has, I think, was sort of the opposite of what the beauty industry has been. It is sort of like too cool. Like, yeah, you can't sit with us. And that is so much of a reflection of who she is. Her superpower, in my opinion, is, man, does she connect with people and people feel seen? Like it's unlike anything I've ever. It is a superpower. The way she makes people feel welcome. She is just incredibly heartfelt and kind. And so I thought, okay, if there's a way we can do that as a brand and bring that to life, whether it's through the community that we have cultivated and how we how we get to know them personally, to the products that we put out so that they're fun and easy to use and not intimidating, to the mental health resources that we're able to post so that people feel that they have a place to which they can turn.
Is it ever hard to tie in the brand purpose with the product, or is it usually flow pretty naturally?
Sometimes, and I think that's when you don't force it. You do it when it feels right. Because, I mean, we are talking about makeup, and it's talking about self-expression and or makeup artistry sometimes, or you don't have to talk about mental health every single time. But I think what's been interesting is that because we have this community, one thing I think that's interesting, and some people might say, oh, that's just an Instagram post, but I think it's meaningful, is that we'll post user-generated content, UGC. We'll post a picture of an individual wearing one of our products. And a lot of times, that's nothing new, of course. Beauty brands do that all the time. But what I love is that we take it a step further and we'll ask them questions and we get to know the community. So sure, it's okay, here's Katie wearing a lipstick. Great. But here's Katie wearing a lipstick. Katie, what are you grateful for this week? Or tell us about a time when something. And so it adds a little bit of depth and dimension. We do stuff like that I feel like the community likes, and then they feel seen, they feel welcomed, because it's not about just wearing the lipstick. And we've done things like pre-COVID, before we obviously didn't know the world was going to be shut down and we were building the brand, we wanted to do a campaign shoot that involved the community. Nothing innovative. Like that's nothing new. But we wanted to do it because if we were all about community and building connection and making people feel welcome, then we should bring them a part of it, but get them to know one another. So I wanted to get to know. So we did for lack of a better word, a casting call, but we called it a community call, where we said, send us your story, send us why you're rare. We don't want to see, it's not about your headshot. Don't send us your headshot, but we want to know your story. And we had 150,000 visits to our website within a few days, 21,000 entries. And I thought the entries would be, I want to meet Selena. Selena's my queen, and it wasn't. There were really warm, wonderful, engaging stories of people. When we went into lockdown, we started hosting Zoom calls with our community. We didn't know what to do. So we thought, well, let's just start to get to know them. So every week we would chat with 15 or so people who had submitted their story to get to know them. And at that time, it was especially special because people were potentially feeling lonelier than ever. And so we were able to connect someone in Iowa who just wants to talk about makeup to someone in Missouri who really loved Selena, or someone in Florida who really wanted to just chat about what they were watching on Netflix. I don't know. It was just a very sweet, kind moment of connection, not only for our community, but for the Rare Beauty team. And now we've started doing community events in person now that we can. We did a hike in LA with the community. And so we're trying to do as much to get to know them and bring to life that feeling of welcome. Even if it's for 15 people, it's still